Good morning. This is Jabari Long with episode number 20 of the Long Report. And today we're going to talk about the tax troubles of the self-employed. So you got two type of income earners in America. You have the W-2 wage earner who pays taxes periodically over the course of the year through their employer. Either they pay bi-weekly or weekly, however often they get paid. And then you have the self-employed individual who's sort of on the honor system. We are tasked with paying taxes quarterly, filing taxes periodically, and actually telling the IRS what we made and paying taxes on that amount. The reason why the W-2 wage earner is not a real big issue for the IRS and the Social Security Administration, I talk about them one and the same because people talk about the IRS, but the bigger bully, I would say, is the Social Security Administration because they want their end of the take as well. So people who pay taxes on a regular basis, they're very comfortable with the income that they're making and the money that they're getting from those individuals. But people like myself who are self-employed, we have a target on our back with regards to being audited and things of that nature because the IRS does not necessarily believe that we make the amount of money that we make. And we as self-employed individuals, since we are on the honor system, we like to not necessarily disclose all the money that's actually being made. So that becomes a problem in multiple ways. When you're self-employed, you're trying to pay the least amount of taxes to Uncle Sam. So you record your income as being low, and when you're going to finance a house or a car, things of that nature, you don't necessarily qualify debt to income because you disclosed that you only make a certain amount. And that was because you didn't want to pay Uncle Sammy the tax revenue that was required based off the amount that you did make. I always tell individuals, if you're self-employed and you haven't been audited, you haven't had any IRS issues, either one, you haven't been self-employed long, two, you haven't made any money, or three, your time just hasn't came yet. The IRS hasn't yet knocked on your door. But don't be surprised when they do, because that's what happens when you are self-employed. So oftentimes people think, I know when I got in trouble, I thought I needed a CPA, certified public accountant, right, to get me out of the situation that I was in. But when the IRS comes knocking, it's always years after the fact. And typically, if you're self-employed, you're probably not going to keep the best records. So when it comes time to produce documentation to support the income that you did file 5 years ago, you don't have it. Oftentimes you're switching different tax preparers from year to year, or you might even be filing taxes yourself because you're self-employed, you're a do-it-yourselfer, so you feel like you can get it done. And that becomes a major issue. They always wait. The interest rates, I want to say penalties and interest start at about 18% and go all the way up into the mid-20s. So this is something that the IRS does on purpose because it fuels the government and it fuels people's coffers to tax the American public. So a CPA, not saying that they can't help, but that's not necessarily something that you need. And definitely these expensive law firms who do a lot of advertising and charge real healthy fees to get people out of situations is definitely not the route I suggest. Those firms, they charge high fees and the results that they get are relatively low. I don't know why people think when there's an issue, they got to go get an attorney. You don't necessarily need an attorney for every single thing or every single problem that you have. You need someone who knows what they're doing, and I call those people consultants. So whatever background they're in, whether it's a tax background or whether they have some sort of other history, they might have worked for the IRS in the past. You want to deal with somebody with proven results who can help you achieve your goal. Now, everybody's goal is not the same, so the strategy or the implementation of The approach that you take is going to be definitely different for each person because each person's situation is different. Just make sure you deal with a qualified professional to get your tax issue resolved. And don't necessarily go to an attorney just because they have healthy fees, because they probably will not be able to get you the results that you need. I had a very significant tax issue, and when I got with the right guy, he was able to resolve my issue. And to a certain extent, it was almost 30, 40 times easier than I thought it was going to be, because he just knew what he was doing. He knew the right calls to make. He had relationships and was able to get it done. So if you're self-employed or thinking about being self-employed, understand that the IRS will be coming for you sooner or later. The more documentation that you have, the better your records are kept, the better you will be. And make sure you're dealing with a qualified tax professional to prepare your taxes along the way and represent you and when this IRS audit comes down. So thanks for tuning in. Jabari Long with episode 20 of The Long Report.